Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me online today prior to the 12th Chem, Petrochem, and Refinery Shutdowns and Turnarounds Conference being held this August 4th through the 6th in New Orleans and online. My name is Elizabeth, and I am the conference producer, bringing together turnaround professionals to discuss best practices in integration, planning, and execution for major projects with fortified schedule, scope, and safety. Today with us is one of our speakers for the event, Mack Jones. Mack, thank you so much for offering your time with this interview, and I'm happy to be working together this year.
Thank you for having me.
Mack has over 20 years experience in various roles associated with turnaround and is currently focused on continuous improvement for multiple locations within his role as the turnaround planning manager with Mosaic Company. And with that, we'll just dive right into the questions. So you'll be presenting a guided discussion around strengthening continuous improvement processes to drive workforce performance, and also participating in a panel discussion on enhancing consistent messaging and to drive turnaround safety among internal and external teams. And we determined these topics a few months ago when things were quite different. And so firstly, how are you adapting your turnarounds during this COVID era?
All right, so first, we haven't had to have a turnaround yet since we've went into this this period of social distancing and everything else. So right now, I can only speak to what we're doing to become prepared for turnaround and learning through normal day-to-day maintenance and capital projects and stuff that might mimic a turnaround. And we're basically following, any kind of federal guidelines and state guidelines, which could be different because we do operate in different states. And that has to do with the things I just mentioned, right? So social distancing and face masks. And the biggest thing that makes some of that harder is whenever we have to have multiple people working in a close area. And so in some cases, we've just kind of challenged how many people need to be working in a particular close area. And where we've not been able to reduce the number of folks that are in an area to perform work, we're using face masks. We're also using face shields, and that's the main thing right now. And also, we're really just watching as new data and new lessons about the virus come in, about transmission and trying to adopt. But we haven't had to do a full-scale turnaround since this has occurred, so I can't speak to how that's going to go. We're just trying to get ready for it.
Okay, and when is your next turnaround?
Our next turnaround is actually in about 9 weeks. So that's, it's early September right now.
Okay.
Our next one.
Yeah, so safety is always a really big pertinent topic within the industry. And so now, especially like you're saying with these new social distancing guidelines, and sanitation measures. So how are you managing the safety dialogue and messaging within your turnaround teams?
One of the things that we're having to do right is that a lot of people fully support the different things that you have to do in order to reduce risk to themselves and to others, but not everyone does. So we're having to do some messaging that tries to convince them that this is the best thing, not just for themselves, but for folks that work around them. Sometimes people act differently if they know it's for the better of the guy next to them than they will if it's for the person for themselves. So that's one of the things, educating folks and, of course, recognizing when we think they're doing the right things. But at the company, we actually haven't mandated face masks because that's not currently mandated in any of the states that we're operating in. It's like highly recommended, but we haven't gotten to the point yet where we're saying you have to do that. And that's something that we're actually considering a couple, 3 times a week if we should make that a requirement. So a lot of talk about doing the right thing is mostly what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's all we really can do is try to do the best thing possible. So what is, kind of switching gears a little bit from the safety, what is um, the process that you go about documenting internal knowledge to allow for continuous collaboration and improvement?
All right, so that's like one of my main jobs. We have numerous locations and we have numerous turnarounds. And I'll add this maybe post the previous question, but we have put off turnarounds that we
Hmm.
were going to have because of this virus. So
Okay.
we would have actually had 2 turnarounds since March, and we've put them off until later in the year. So the main thing that I do is I go from location to location, and I'm involved with plant level pre-planning for turnaround, plant level execution, basically, daily updates, and plant level post turnaround rundown of what went well, what needs to be worked on. And in all of those instances, since I know what other plants are doing, I will share best practices as I hear people are struggling, or as I hear someone is doing something very neat and novel. I will share that with other locations. So it's mostly just there's numerous things that one plant does better than another. And there's always an opportunity to share knowledge across the different locations. I don't do that always because there may not be a need to do a thing better. It may just not be worth the trouble of trying to implement a new thing. And then whenever there is something that's very novel that does apply to everyone, we do have a turnaround planning procedure policy. And I will update that turnaround plan to reflect those new best practices so that everyone will see that, going forward. That's mostly what my job is.
Okay, cool. So, what is a particular tool or tactic that you're using to track the skills within the workforce to update instruction and improvement goals?
So this is a good question, right? Because it's actually not something we've done. And so to answer your question, I'm interested to see what other people were going to say about doing this because we don't. We do track as contract groups do something very well. We will try to share that where it's not like a proprietary thing, right? But if it's just a generally better way to go about doing a turnaround, then we will try to steal that and tell other contractors, hey, you could be safer, you could be more efficient. But as far as like individual craft people skills, we are not doing that. So I'm interested to hear what people have to say about it.
Okay, cool. Me too. So, a little more about you. What is one item about your professional career or current role that one wouldn't be able to know from your LinkedIn or bio?
Um, okay. Well, I guess they would never know that when I was a teenager, I used to work at Kings Island Park in Cincinnati at the log.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that was actually probably one of my favorite jobs ever. That's the thing I'll share.
Awesome. And finally, what are you most looking forward to at our 12th Chem, Petrochem, and Refinery Shutdowns and Turnarounds Conference this August?
Well, it's one of two things, right? If it's where I'm with people, as opposed to being online, I look forward to always meeting people with new perspectives
Mhm.
and being able to learn things, right? So if it's online, I don't know how well that's going to work, where you can just mill around and say, hey, and what do you do, and that kind of stuff, right? So I'm not sure if you guys have thought about that yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's the thing I always look forward to at these is just meeting new vendors and new folks that actually work in plants that do turnarounds and learning from them.
Awesome. Yeah, the interactive portions of our events really really make it. So we'll be able to transfer a lot of that online if need be. So
All
I'm
right.
excited to just be able to still be pushing out events in these times. I think it's really important, and there's a lot of fresh and fun and challenging things to discuss. So good. I look
Yes, there are. Yeah. Yeah. I
good.
agree.
Well,
All
thanks
right.
so much for your time, Mac, and I'll see you at the event.
Okay. It sounds good.